Hi, I'm Buzz Smith, the EV-angelist. Don't boo, everybody. The first 10 years of my career was in oil and gas.
I like this already. EV-angelist. All right.
I'm spreading the good news of electric vehicles for the last 10 years of my life. Got my first plug-in vehicle in 2012. My wife got one 60 days later. We got one for our daughter when she got her driver's license. My dad now has one. My brother now has one.
Look at that.
So we're all electrified, never going back to gas. Back in 1985, during one of the oil field busts, I was in oil and gas, and I was a frontline worker. I worked in a machine shop as a manufacturing engineer building wellhead equipment. When that happened, Houston was devastated. Everybody lost their jobs. And then I lost my home. And we had to leave the town that I was born in and move up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. By the way, it was a great decision, but it was forced on me. Houses on my street went for prices so low at auction that people bought them with credit cards. When people talk about disruption today, they think we're talking about disrupting businesses. We're talking about disrupting families and their lives. I'm all behind it. I love electric vehicles. But we've got to be planning for how are we going to retrain those front workers who built this country over the last 150 years and give them a better life. And we've got to give them education, but they live paycheck to paycheck. They can't just take 2 years off to go get re-educated. How can we help them?
You're right. Thank you. Well, thanks for sharing your story, first of all. And it reminds me of something that happened in my community long before I was born, but we were still living with it when I grew up. We never had a lot of oil and gas in my part of Indiana, but we were an auto manufacturing town, went through that kind of bust that you're talking about. And my hometown was reeling from the loss of auto jobs for literally 50 years before we really were able to pick ourselves up and come out of it. So know what it means when you have that kind of shock or that kind of transition and people get left behind. And we have a responsibility to make sure that the transition into new forms of transportation, new forms of energy, creates more opportunity and doesn't leave anybody behind. And by the way, we can. One of the things we're doing with our fund for electric buses is we're requiring that if a transit agency wants to use it for buying electric buses, which of course we're all for, they have to have a set aside for the training, the workforce training, so that the kinds of people who are good at operating or maintaining a diesel bus can get skilled up to do the same thing with an electric bus. We got to make sure, specifically in the energy sector, that we're connecting people up to the jobs. The same skills that make somebody good at digging or maintaining a well make somebody really good at capping these wells that need to be capped, right? And we're going to support that. We have to. It's morally the right thing to do. It's economically the right thing to do. And it can be part of a story where we come out of this with more and better jobs than we had. A few years ago, everybody was talking about green jobs or green-collar jobs. That was a term. You don't hear it as much now, but it was a real kind of buzzy term. But the more I look at the jobs that are being generated through these transitions, they're blue-collar jobs. The majority of them are blue-collar jobs in a green context. But we've got to make sure that the folks who have worked their whole lives honorably, responsibly, taking care of their family, sponsoring Little League, giving every week at their church, chipping in, doing their part, that those folks are first in line if an old line of work is changing to be able to benefit from that new line of work. And that's something I can tell you because he's looked me in the eye and talked about it. I can tell you it's very important to the president, and it's very important to me too.
Two other things, not a question.
Yeah.
One of them you mentioned tax credits earlier.
Yeah.
If you don't have a very big tax burden, the tax credit doesn't help you afford an electric vehicle. And then the other thing is...
yes, okay, but unless we make it refundable, which I think we ought to...
Okay, and then the other thing is please stop the post office from buying more gas vehicles. There's never been a better application for electric vehicles than going from mailbox to mailbox. That start and stop with degenerative braking and the maintenance savings alone. It's just the smart thing to do, and we cannot go the route that we're actually heading down right now. Thank you.
I hear you. Thank you.